Hey, back on Leading Edge, my next guest has an amazing story. According to the odds, he shouldn't be here. He should be dead. We think of odds when we think of games of chance. Troy Lewis got another chance and writes about it in his book, Another Second Chance, God's Story. I welcome Troy Lewis to Leading Edge today. Nice to have you here. It was 1992. We're talking 20 years ago. A big year for this guy. I mean, getting married that year, buying a house, having a baby, buying insurance to protect it all, and a test for the insurance showed some blood in his urine. Further examination would reveal a rare kidney disease, but again, the odds, not bad. 80% of people with that disease would live long, productive lives. Troy was a 20%er. At age 40, his kidneys began to fail. Over time, he would progress to stage 5 kidney failure. He was going to die. Why not dialysis along the way?
Well, the dialysis, we went on the dialysis, and quite frankly, it just didn't work for me. I had this rare thing that would happen. Halfway through dialysis, my blood pressure would start to skyrocket, and each time I did dialysis, the threshold kept going higher. I was only on dialysis for 12 weeks, and in those 12 weeks, I was in the emergency room 10 times and intensive care twice. By the time the 12th week rolled around, just before what would end up being the life-saving surgery, my BP climaxed at 235 over 135.
Think of the stress that is putting your system under. So now your kidney's failing and you can't do dialysis. You're in trouble. You need a transplant. But I want to stop for a moment. We'll pick it up. Backtrack for me. Rewind. Several years earlier. Around 2000, somewhere in there?
Yes.
Your life had changed in a pretty dramatic way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My wife and I were invited to a church play. At the time, we weren't even churchgoers whatsoever. We went to this play, thought it'd be a fun night out. Next thing I know, I watched this passion drama. Didn't even know what that was at the time.
This is Easter time.
Yeah, it's right there at Easter. And I'd find myself standing before the altar on Easter Sunday, giving my life to Christ. I got up, turned around, and my wife was doing the same thing back there in the pew. 7 months later, I get approached by the play director. She asked me if I'd like to be in the play.
And you're just a natural thespian at the time.
Oh, no.
Not at all.
No, not at all. Not at all. I just laughed. I told her, I said, I don't sing, I don't dance.
I should be in the background someplace.
Yeah, that's what I said. I said, put me in the back. Put me in the back.
But you actually ended up playing a kind of a significant role in a passion play.
Absolutely. She asked me, she says, we've lost our Jesus. We want you to play Jesus Christ for us.
And you did that not only that year, but for several years after.
For 9 years afterwards.
That background is going to come into play, folks. There's a reason I ask about it. But you still desperately needed a donor organ as we get to your kidney situation. You have 4 brothers. That seemed like it'd be a pretty good place to look.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you did.
And we did.
And the answer wasn't yes.
No. The answer was no. All 4 brothers, for miscellaneous reasons, were not a match. So my wife and I, we went back to the church, prayed about it, and suddenly, one by one, people started coming forward. At one point, about 3 or 4...
To be tested to see if they would match?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Wow.
3 or 4 weeks later, TUMC called and said, stop sending people. We found our guy.
You had one lined up. You knew his name. You were date specific. I think the date was set for the procedure only to have it all fall through. Did you, Troy Lewis, then or at any other time have the feeling like, I'm not going to survive this?
Yeah. I believed all along that it was going to work out. I just didn't know how.
Yeah.
And I just kept having faith that it would all work out. But I tell you, at those times when your faith is shaken, you know, you just dig down deep inside. I had people all around me praying, and it was at that moment when that fell through that we ended up going back to our doctor. He sat us down and explained that there's this thing that he had started 3 years prior.
You're leading me right into the Alliance for Paired Donation. Dr. Reese out of UTMC. In the most simplistic way I can look at this, you need an organ, you get one, you put an organ into the system, and if you can't, somebody for you does. Correct. You had your brother Tony who was willing to do that for you.
That's right.
That's a brother's love.
That's right. And that was an amazing story in itself, because out of all the donors that had stepped forward, there was over a dozen, I believe. My brother was the only O donor out of this whole group. And he had to have an O donor to make that happen.
Wow. And you found your organ then. The call came, a couple of people, but ultimately from Colorado?
It was from Colorado. They had found a gentleman. Now see, the thing is that I was a 1 in 400 chance to even find a donor, somebody that I could even use.
Again with the odds.
Yes.
You and the odds, 1 in 400.
They found 2 people out of 300 across the nation. one in Pennsylvania, one in Colorado. They decided to use the gentleman from Colorado because he's what's called an altruistic donor.
Yeah.
He just felt like he needed to give his kidney away.
No other connection, no other impetus, no other motivation that he felt drawn to, he felt led to, just do this. You went, I was reading again through your book, from that low point physically, surgery, to the next day. I'm not going to talk about, it wasn't like running marathons the next day, but this is dramatic.
Oh, it was unbelievable. I was sitting in intensive care when we got the call that the surgery would take place the following day.
Yeah.
They immediately took me from Toledo Hospital to TUMC and worked around the clock to try to get my blood pressure under control. And then at that time, they made the call it was going to happen. The kidney flew in from Colorado Springs, one of the longest trips they had ever made, in the worst downpour of the year.
Oh.
And the next morning I woke up, the haziness was gone, the pain was gone. It was the most amazing experience I'd ever had, and it just so happened that the sun was coming up through the window that morning, waking me up. It was like God was shining down.
You had a new sunrise in your life. We're getting short on time. Real quickly, though, again, we mentioned that his brother Tony had to step forward and donate a kidney. And frankly, what should have been a 2-hour procedure turned into a 10-hour procedure. He came amazingly close to losing his life.
He did.
During that surgery to donate an organ for you.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Through all the testing and everything, they had found. I hate to give too much away there. At the end.
Okay. Let's just do this. Let me try this. He came amazingly close to dying, and yet there's a hook in this book that will say that may have been a life-saving action that his brother Tony took. You're saying, well, of course it is. He's donating an organ, not for somebody else, but for him personally.
Yes.
Ooh, leave it there?
Yeah.
That's not bad. The rest of the story's in there. You have a chance to meet this guy, Troy Lewis. He's going to be signing his book, Another Second Chance, God's Story. He's going to be at Cedar Creek's South Campus. Now take note, that is the one on Southburn Road, just south of Heather Downs. It's next weekend, Saturday evening, the 19th, before and after the 6 p.m. service. They have a Saturday evening service. And then Sunday morning, the services start at 9, and you're going to be there through the early afternoon.
All the way through.
All the way through.
All the way through.
Get out and meet this man, get this book, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Book can also be found on my website at www.anothersecondchance.org.
Anothersecondchance.org. All right, we'll try to get a link to that at our website as well. All right, and I'm going to be right back.